Hey everyone, Noble Comics here, talking about DC Future State, which I've talked about a few times on the channel. And if you've been paying attention, you know it's DC's new event going on, new stories, new characters, Elseworld stuff. But what I want to talk about is what is the real future state of DC, because anyone paying attention knows that this is not it. Originally, when this all started as DC 5G, the idea was to drastically change the DC landscape permanently. We're going to change who Batman is, change who Superman is, we're going to change everything around, attract a new audience, we're going to make a whole bunch of changes in order to not get laid off. Then Dan DiDio got fired because that was a terrible idea, the way he wanted to do it. They said DC 5G is not a thing. Then they announced DC Future State, which was the exact same thing, but much smaller. So they went from changing the DC universe to changing nothing, basically, because all this Future State is just Elseworld stories. It's an event tied on to an event, the Death Metal sequel, an event tied to an event that's going to last 2 months, and it's back to business as usual. So you might ask yourself, well, why do it then? Well, obviously to make money, try and make some money, but we'll see if it actually works. Right now we can't look at like the Comic-Con sales figures to see how it's all doing, but hopefully at some point we can, and we can actually see how the sales were. I think as a whole it's been pretty accepted, pretty good. I've picked up a couple issues. Wonder Woman just looked boring to me. Most of these stories look boring to me. I picked up the Batman Dark Detective, and I picked up the Superman story. Which one was it, though? It was... Let me see. Let me reach over here and take a look. DC Future State. What? The one where Superman's trapped on the Battle World. And I thought they were both fine. Both alright stories. I'll probably pick up the next issue just to see if it gets a little bit more interesting, but they're fine. But are they enough to keep DC afloat? Are they enough to prove to AT&T that they're worth keeping around? Because that was the idea, right? We're going to make this huge event, basically a rebirth of DC Comics. We're going to show AT&T, who own us, we can make money, we're worth having around, and all this other junk that's probably not true. But instead we got Future State, and it is probably going to make a little spike in revenue, as all these events do, and new issue ones always have a little bit of a spike. But come March, all this will be over and we're back to the regular comics, with presumably no real lasting effects. These are all Elseworld stories. Maybe a popular title or two might get its own series, but I don't really see them with a lot of longevity. My theory with this is that they know that was never their idea. Their idea instead was just to create new IP. They're like, well, we'll make a little bit of money, but more importantly, we'll make new characters and new stories. Now they got a new Batman, they got a new Superman, they got all these new characters just in case they want to sell them off to the movies or sell them off to make a TV show. They've got new IP that they've farmed. I think that was sort of the main idea. But they do need something after the fact to keep readers around. They need something, an actual change, to show the board members that they deserve to not be fired. Maybe they'll just keep doing little short events to get IP and little bumps of money. Maybe they'll just make good stories again. Who knows? But like I said, what they've put out that I've read, and I've only read 2 out of, all of these. I've read 2 of them, but they were both good. Now I think how we've defined good now is, the bar has been lowered for sure, but they were just kind of boring and average, which is a good thing for DC. I read the Batman Dark Detective, and it was very stereotypical Blade Runner future. They've got, what do they call them, like, the cyborgs are after them, and there's the cyborg bounty hunter guy who killed Batman. And it's all just very average, I guess. You know, none of it's very original, but it's just generic, which is better than being garbage. So it's a generic sci-fi story that happens to have Batman. I'm fine with that. The Superman story where he is on the battle world and he doesn't really have his powers, but he's fighting in this gladiator arena. And everyone's telling their stories about how Superman saved him. Generic hero story. You could insert Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. You could insert any character into that role. Doesn't have to be Superman, like that Dr. Detective. Doesn't have to be Batman. You can insert anybody there, and it still works because it's just a generic story. But that's what they need right now, I guess, is a return to generic stories. Generic superhero stories that people just kind of like. And then from there, once you've gotten rid of all the other garbage, you can actually start to build good stories. But again, let's look up AT&T layoffs here. We can see they've just had rounds and rounds of layoffs. And, if AT&T is laying off thousands of people, you got to wonder, what hope does DC Comics have? If they're laying off people like HBO, Warner Brothers, who actually make some money, DC hasn't got much time left, I'd imagine. If they don't get into shape and start making money, maybe that streaming service they have needs like a boost. Something needs to happen. Whether, whatever it takes. But, so that's just sort of like a little update, I guess. It's going on right now. It's a little 2-month event. It seems like it's okay. And maybe that's all it needs to be, is okay. Maybe that's good enough. I doubt it. But I'll say all is not lost for DC right now. I'd say they've got a shot to not screw this up. A small shot. They've got a shot. Let's hope they come out on the other side better. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.